сначала.
A lot of this isn't going to make sense to you, and I'm sorry about that. I'm just going to start at the beginning, with the house. I lived here until I was 11, but I wasn't allowed inside half the rooms. Inside the mailbox were bills from 7 years ago, marked urgent, open immediately. I hadn't been back since my brother Lewis's funeral. In her will, my mother left me a key, but didn't tell me what it unlocked. Maybe she thought I'd know. Or she thought that the mystery would be enough to bring me back.
Сейчас так, сюда можно вниз? Можно вниз. Можно по дороге. Чё вниз? Что внизу? Меня ждет? Это к дому. Чё вниз?
The truth is, even after I inherited the house, I never thought I'd come back to it. But now I had questions about my family that only the house knew the answers to.
Так бы я вон по той дорожке сверху прошел бы, да?
The woods around the house have always been uncomfortably silent. As if they're about to say something, but never do.
Баскетбольное кольцо, газета какая. Миссинг. Кто миссинг? Милтон Финч пропал. Да? Милтон Финч пропал. Окей. Это что, олень? Олень? Привет, олень. Олень убежал.
No one had driven this way in a long time, but I saw a few hoof prints.
Чивочка. Потом какая-то рыба, жесть. Что
The
цветы,
house was
везде
exactly
вот эти
like I remembered it,
фиолетовые.
the way I'd been dreaming about it.
Дальше Милтон Финч пропал, да? Горка в виде змеи. Это как будто что-то сказочное здесь происходит. Немножечко. В плане волшебное, в плане как будто хозяева хотели, чтобы
As a child, the house made me uncomfortable in a way I couldn't put into words.
чтобы дом был странный,
Now,
удивительный.
as a 17-year-old, I knew exactly what those words were. I was afraid of the house.
Дом меня пугал. Я надеюсь, дом не будет пугать меня. Я бы не хотел, честно говоря, чтобы дом меня пугал. Стульчики. Что там видно?
The house felt like it had always been
Ого.
here. Even the swing set was older than my mother.
Статуя какая-то стоит, смотрит на воду. Там какой-то остров.
I heard something moving around in the garage.
Блин, мне не нравится, что саутинг на гараж.
I hoped the key might unlock the front door. It didn't. Looking in, I felt like the house itself had been waiting for me.
Сюда пойти, здесь что-нибудь есть интересно? Так. Милтон пропал. Это, видимо, ее сын, да? 2010, 2010, 2010. Окей. Гиборка. Каста. Джей. А, Эдит — это главная героиня, это она последняя, да, получается, она самая молодая. 99-го года самая маленькая. Это сейчас типа 2016, если 17 лет. Так 2016 происходит. А, и собственно вот некий Даун умер. И она последний потомок. Это Дон скорее, да. Блин, очень круто, типа, привлекают внимание вот в локации, да, что так смотришь. В целом сразу понятно, что надо сюда, потому что дом такой весь оплетен вот этим плющом, немножечко серых тонах. Здесь единственное светлое место, цветочки. Цветочки на входе тоже есть туда, посмотрите. Здесь самое главное звук. Звук очень круто. Цвета яркие. Что-то упало в
Crawling through
гараже.
the doggy door used to be a lot easier when I was 11.
Это ей было 11, это 6 лет назад, в 2010 получается. В 2010 году она уехала.
The power had been turned off the night we left.
А, они все уехали, видимо, никого не осталось с тех пор. Фритюрница какая-то или холодильник, что это? Велики.
For the first time in years, I felt like I was home.
Сколько вина. Что упало-то в гараже? Засасывает в дом? Что происходит? Она мышка плавнее двигается, если... Мышкой, короче, как-то получше, как будто бы с камерой, не знаю. Чувствительность может быть чуть пониже. Сейчас так. Да, вот так лучше прям горшочек с глазами.
But instead of
какой-то.
a family, there were just memories of one.
Вот, это она. Она померла. Дит маленькая, Эдди, это бабушка, Льюис. Льюис на 1010-м. Эдди, это прям бабушка-бабушка. Дон, вот это вот, видимо. Льюис Финч. Бразер. Эдисон. Дон. Правнук Эдди. Вот это вот камера, которая увеличивается.
Like how after Lewis started working at the cannery, we all got sick of eating salmon. Except our cat, Molly.
Яблочный пирог. Рецепт пирога. Ну, кстати, рецепт легитимный. Вполне.
Or how only one restaurant would deliver to our house, so we had Chinese a lot.
Вытяжка что-то дергается, дует. Сколько же здесь книг, капец.
The table was still a wreck from the night we left. It
Почему
was
не
like a
уехали,
bomb had gone
интересно?
off, killing everyone but sparing the furniture.
Просто, да, вот так бросили прям все, типа... Просто уехали.
My mom was the only one of us who could imagine Great Grandma Edie living in a nursing home. Nothing in the house looked abnormal. There was just too much of it, like a smile with too many teeth.
Красиво. Статуя стоит, видишь? Птичка. Ломалась там, блин. Был очень крутой. Какие-то сборы они проводили здесь.
My mom wasn't much of an optimist, but she never stopped believing that my brother Milton was alive. A lot of things got left behind in the whirlwind of that last night.
Почему они сбежали? Что это за запененная дверь с замком?
Edie told me once that every Finch who ever lived is buried somewhere in the library.
Это библиотека такая. Почему она запененная? Наверх можно? Так, давай сначала не наверх, сначала здесь вот посмотрим, что тут. Барбара. Почему там
Great Grandpa
Йети?
Sven built a music box for Barbara, along with the rest of the house.
Дедушка Свен. Так, если вот она. Мама, бабушка. Про бабушка? Ну, или про дедушка? Вот это некто. Кто Свен? Какой Свен? Здесь нет. А, есть, вот он, Свен. Отвалился листочек. Так, стоп, а Барбара кто такая? Вот она, Барбара. 60-й год. 16 лет все прожила, блин, это очень грустно. Это типа вот это Сэм Уолтер. Или как это работает? Барбара Финч. Она в кино снималась, что ли? Или снимала кино? Жуканы.
Mom always told me to stay out of the basement, so I wasn't too surprised when the key didn't fit.
Этот дом так скрипит, живется. И, блин, сколько же здесь книг. Сколько же у них книг просто по всему дому.
After Milton disappeared, Mom sealed up all the bedrooms. Then Edie retaliated and drilled peepholes.
Ого. Почему все запенено, Молли?
Molly always seemed like a girl I could imagine being friends with, if she hadn't died in 1947.
Мышки прикольная, милая.
Whenever people ask me about my family, the first thing they always want to know about is Barbara.
Билли Бантон. Мой френд Бигфут. Еще наверх есть. Так, давай сначала спальня.
Edie's father Odin built the original house.
Блин, их капец. Блин, на самом деле дом крутой, мне очень нравится. Тут, типа книги. Вот эта полочка, здесь можно посидеть. Книги и вино повсюду. Барбара, это которая звезда, которая 16 лет прожила, к сожалению.
Barbara was a child star for 2 years, until America grew out of it.
Там вон рисунок на пиле, блин, прикольно. Это кто? Свен и Эдди, да, получается?
The last time I was in Edith Sr.'s room, I was 10 and she was painting my portrait. As a
Грегори
kid, I just
годовалый
assumed
всё.
every house had peepholes and sealed rooms you weren't allowed inside of.
Что за Грегори 1 год? Грегори 1 год, вот он. Кельвин. Кельвин, сколько? 11. Бля, а почему они так мало прожили все? 11, 16, 10. Это вообще год. — 22 Льюису, да, получается. Милтон 9 лет.
My Grandpa Sam spent 7 years sharing a room with his dead brother, Calvin. Mom must have locked the third floor stairs on the night we left.
Я не сходил в синюю комнату прикольную. Провод, не просто так. Но провод мне, видимо, нельзя. Надо идти в синюю прикольную комнату. А где синяя прикольная комната? Вот она.
I spent a lot of time playing in Great Uncle Walter's room.
Двоюродный дядюшка Уолтер.
Lewis told me there were secret passages, but I never believed him.
Уолтер, Уолтер, Уолтер. Вот он, Уолтер. Неужели от книжки? Замок, ключ от книжки? 20 тысяч лье под водой. Блин, я не читал, к сожалению.
Turns out, my mom was really good at keeping secrets. Now it was time to find out what my mom had been afraid of. From the paintings on the wall, it was clear my brother Milton had been here before me.
Это котенок Милтон.
Reading
написан.
this, maybe it sounds like I had a plan.
Витражи. Рисунки, блин. Неужели он потерял
But I
свой
had
дом?
no idea what was behind that door.
Так, это чья-то спальня. Это той девочки, которая
Just
умерла,
like I had
маленькая.
no idea where all this was gonna lead.
Молли, да.
I grew up looking at Molly's room through the peephole. Molly's gerbil had a tiny bedroom with its own even tinier gerbil cage. Being inside for the first time, I felt like I'd stepped behind a painting.
Какая-то смазка совы. 37, 47. 47. Морская звезда, микроскоп, блин. Прикольная комната.
December 13th, 1947. Dear Diary, I'll be gone soon, but I wanted to tell somebody about what's gonna happen. It started when Mom sent me to bed without dinner. I woke up and I was starving, so I looked around for something to eat.
Она же не хомяка, я надеюсь, съела. Нет, корм для хомяка я не хочу.
I thought about eating Christopher, but I held back. My Halloween candy was all gone. Mom, can I come out now?
Sweetheart, it's late. Go to sleep.
The gerbil food was dry, but I didn't mind it.
Жесть, она съела морковку хомячью. Это Молли, да? Вот она маленькая совсем. 10 лет. Что же это? Это ванная, да? У нее своя ванная.
I kept eating and eating.
Ну нет, ну только не зубную пасту. Птичка в окно постучалась.
Then I heard chirping outside my window.
Подожди, так.
I ate a lot of things that night.
Блин, вот это, возможно, было... Неужели она поэтому умерла, то что она съела какую-то мусорную еду непонятную?
It was a barn swallow going back to her nest. I reached out for her.
Она выпала в окно.
And suddenly,
Что?
I was a cat.
Что? Почему я киса?
I tried to be quiet, but the bird was really scared.
Почему я киса?
Mom and Dad didn't even look at me.
Они в зеленой спальне, да, были. Дальше, сюда.
The babies were all gone.
Чему мурлыкает так приятно?
I jumped and I almost got her.
Что за стол?
Now I was up in the big tree. I promised Dad I wouldn't climb it anymore. All I cared about was eating that mama bird. I could tell she was getting really tired.
Что за дерево? Это Игдрасиль какой-то? Что это? Это тут не построено еще. Это, видимо, вот здесь вот вырастет эта башня, да, вокруг этого дерева. Или как это работает?
I gobbled her up. And suddenly, I was an owl. First, all I heard was the wind. Then I heard little teeth nibbling in the grass.
Мышку ищу.
Rabbits.
Вот он.
I imagined his face looking up and seeing mine through my talons. I swallowed him up, and I didn't chew one bit. Then I flew off to find something bigger. A mama rabbit. She was almost too big to carry. I started choking, but I couldn't stop eating. And suddenly, I was a shark.
Так, вон там вода.
I rolled off a cliff and into the ocean. Now, I was hungrier than ever. I wanted fat, juicy seals.
В смысле, я мимо проехал? Как его поймать? мать.
I tore off her flipper, and it tasted really good.
Не понимаю, что я теперь ищу. Вон он. Вот он. Так.
I grabbed on tight. When I was so hungry, I jumped out of the water. When I opened my eyes, everything had changed.
О, что? Я кракен теперь?
Now I was a monster, and I smelled people everywhere. I was
Жесть, я
big, and I
кракен.
moved real quiet. I wanted to stop, but also I didn't. After the last passenger, I was still hungry. And across the water, I saw something new. Something I had to have, so I swam towards it.
Почему я кракен? Почему я
I
монстр?
slithered onto the sand, and the good smell went into an old pipe.
Что происходит? Это их дом?
I got closer and closer.
Это их дом, это она сама себя съела, что?
All of my stomach started growling. And suddenly, I was me again. I held my breath for a long time, but I couldn't hear anything. I think it's waiting for me to fall asleep. But it's not going to wait much longer. It needs to feed, and we both know I will be delicious.
О, это супер криповая какая-то история.
I'm not sure if I believed all of that, but I'm sure Edie would have.
Под кровать можно залезть? Вон ее это самое
I can't
медуза.
describe it, but I felt like some part of Molly was still here.
Кошка.
This will be obvious later, but my mom never told me any of these stories. Edie would have, but Mom didn't like bringing up the past. Though, when we adopted a stray kitten, she was the one who named it Molly.
Так, а это чья спальня?
I spent a lot of time in Great-Grandma Edie's room.
А, вот это ее родители. Так. Получается, Эдди и Один, у них были... У них были Уолтер, Сэм, Кельвин, Барбара и Молли. Так это работает. Урпи. Куча птичек, жесть. Змея Боб.
We got along, and it was a good place to hide from my mom.
Свен Финч в 1937 году построил.
When Edie told people Sven was killed by a dragon, she could also have said he was building a dragon-shaped slide that collapsed. She could have, but she didn't.
Тот дракон, который в этом самом, вот
Edie knit me a new pair of
Воде.
gloves every year, just in time to replace the old ones. Louis died a week before we left, but Edie had already started to memorialize him.
Льюис. Да, 22 взрослый, который...
Her room was like a museum. For 500 years, the Finches have been famous throughout Norway for their fortune and misfortune. Odin Finch buries the latest victims of the family curse, his wife Ingeborg and their newborn son, Johan. On January 7th, 1937, he set sail with his family and his house, hoping to leave the curse behind. But 40-foot waves off the coast of Washington send the house and Odin to the bottom of the sea. Odin's daughter Edie, with husband Sven and baby Molly, step ashore on their new home, Orcas Island. Odin Finch is the first to be buried in the new family
Это
cemetery.
его, тот самый... Его статуя, да.
His daughter Edie is already dreaming of a new Finch house.
Все, да.
Whatever's wrong with this family, it goes back a long ways.
Тайны смерти. Даже автор это после смерти, видимо. Один Финч. Это его книга. Свен и Эдди. Это что такое?
Even in her 90s, sometimes Edie seemed a lot younger than my mother. The only trace Grandpa Sam's first wife Kay left on the house was the pink bathroom.
Подушки Сэма, лягушонки, чёчки. Здесь должно быть
It was
зеркало
a
или
pretty
картина
big
как
trace.
будто. Стопанный. Еще книжка. Так, хочу в ту комнату пойти посмотреть, прежде чем открывать следующую книжку. В эту можно зайти? Нет? А, это вход в спальню запененный. Шляпы всякие. Вот эти суки, как будто кто-то где-то ходит. Прикольно, картина нарисована на стене, прям жесть. Это вот это вот 1 год, вот это вот, да, которая знаменита. Так, давай. Секрет ванной. Книга Свена и Эдди Финч.
There's a secret in this bathroom. It's in the last place you would look. It isn't in the cupboard. It's hidden in this book.
Хо-хо. Finch.
Sven gave Sam an old camera he'd refurbished. He never put it down.
Человечки какие-то игрушечные, олененок. Качели. Лень. Милтон был здесь опять. Форт Кельвин. Форт Сэм. Этот хотел в космос, этот хотел быть военным.
I knew Grandpa Sam had a twin. And that he never talked about him.
Командный центр.
I guess my grandpa didn't like history any more than my mom did.
Кельвин. 11 лет.
How I Want to Remember My Brother by Sam Finch. The thing I remember is that when he made up his mind, that was it.
Сломанной ногой Пальчуган.
My brother said he'd die before he ate another mushroom. And he did. At Barbara's funeral, we swore we'd never be afraid again. And he
Неужели он
wasn't.
выпал просто с качели вперед?
I think Calvin always wanted to fly.
Sam! Calvin! Dinner's ready! Coming!
But that day, he finally made up his mind to do it. I told him going around was impossible. Maybe if I hadn't said that,
Calvin, I'm not gonna tell you again.
Я могу просто закончить качаться и, ну, не делать этого. Если просто не качаться, я остановлюсь. Просто уйти. Нет? Там буёк, что ли, какой-то мигает. Что, неужели нельзя просто уйти? Что ж, поехали. Я же видел эти качели, да,
Maybe
одна
if the wind
цепочка
hadn't picked
рвется.
up, then maybe he'd still be here. But I doubt it.
Вот сейчас, да?
I think he'd already made up his mind. That's what I want to remember about my brother.
Он закрутится, ударится об дерево.
The day he made up his mind to fly. And he did.
Блин. Хотел в космос.
Calvin's story felt strangely familiar. When I was younger, I remember trying to do the exact same thing.
С педалями у него тут.
After the funeral, Edie roped off Calvin's half of the room.
Mom said Grandpa Sam enlisted at 18 and never set foot in the room again.
Что дом с секретами?
The passages were a pretty tight fit.
Здесь
They'd
вино.
obviously been built for smaller hands and bellies.
Это вот, собственно, там, где я отметил, что вино... Милтон здесь был. Это
Growing up,
Барбара.
I always thought of Barbara as a child star. I never thought about how hard it must have been for her afterwards.
Подожди, Барбара. Стрит. 16 лет ей было, да?
Of all the stories people wrote about Barbara's death, I'm surprised Edie saved this one.
Old Jack here with another ghastly tale inspired by America's most unfortunate family. I'm calling it The Surprise Ending of Barbara Finch. As a child star, Barbara was famous for her scream. Now at 16, she was all washed up. A has-been. But in a lucky break, she'd been asked to perform her signature scream at a local convention for monster movie fans. It was just the boost her career needed. Unfortunately, her scream hadn't aged well.
Getting better. I think you just need the right motivation.
Her biggest fan and current boyfriend, Rick, was about to demonstrate when...
Now that was a great scream.
It was Barbara's father, Sven. He'd slipped into a table saw and had to be rushed to the emergency room. So
Так и было.
Barbara got stuck babysitting her youngest brother, Walter. Her
Уолтер
convention
тоже
comeback
мало.
was cancelled.
Okay, I'm hearing frustration, but I'm not hearing terror. What if I tried...
A gang of hoodlums in Halloween masks have been terrorizing Orcas Island tonight. Police are urging residents to...
That came from the basement.
You're right! Also, I loved your delivery on that. Why is your basement door locked?
Because my dad likes making puzzles and secret passages.
Здесь
There's a
не
key
скажет,
to
где
the
ключ.
music box. The secret is to keep winding, and winding until finally the key pops out.
Thanks, babe. I'll be back in a sec.
20 minutes later, Rick hadn't returned. So Barbara went to look for him, right on cue. She reached for the music box. And as she wound the key, she listened for Rick, but the house was silent.
Как ключ вернулся, если Рик зашел вниз? Что за музыка из расследований каких-то? Костыль какой-то.
She found
Покерный
Rick's
стол.
crutch and imagined the worst.
Блин, это хорошо, ладно. Так, ну-ка.
The gang's leader is the infamous Hookman killer, Dr. Carl Hamill, who impaled and then ate his family 10 years ago tonight.
Чейнсоу, которая...
Oh, Finch rattled and grew still.
Oh dear!
Oh!
Rick?
Barb, relax. I was just trying to scare you to help you find your scream.
Well, I'm not scared, Rick. I'm furious.
Then act furious. All I'm getting from you now is that you're hurt and confused and
She threw him out, but she kept a little something to remember him by.
Barb, have you seen my other crutch?
And she was still holding it when she fell asleep watching the late picture show. Hours later...
Barbara! Walter, what's going on up there? Ah! Okay, I'm coming up, but if this is a trick, you're dead, Walter.
Скелет какой-то с глазом. Блин, эти глаза стрёмные, конечно. Где спальня Уолтера? Здесь? Вот это?
Walter, are you there?
Он ее будет пугать?
Walter had vanished, but his bedside radio was still on.
Orcas Island police describe the man as 6 feet tall, with a steel hook for a hand. Residents are urged to lock all doors and windows and notify the police of any suspicious activity.
О, нет.
Barbara turned, saw the hookman, and was speechless. He was quite smashing. And who he was, he couldn't get enough of Barbara.
Okay, Barbara, there's gotta be another way out of here.
Тайник вот это вот, давай сюда.
That night, she played her part beautifully.
Комната маленькой девочки. А из маленькой девочки куда? В ванну надо было? Забыл. В окно. В окно надо было.
She thought about abandoning Walter, but just couldn't do it.
Типа со спины выйти?
Ollie's door hadn't been opened in years. The hinges groaned. He wasn't moving, but she sensed the story might not
Сломанные перила
over
были.
yet.
Были сломанные перила. Сейчас я приду, а его там нет, да? Или я подсказываюсь на коньке на втором? Его тут тут уже нет, да? Его тут уже нет.
The hookman had vanished. She listened for his breathing, but all she heard was...
Куда он делся? Музон какой-то откуда-то прям знакомый.
At the door, she heard whispering. It was coming from inside the house.
Их много было.
Oh dear.
The monsters had come to surprise her. For Barbara, it was a dream come true. Then she saw what kind of monsters they were, and she realized what was about to happen. She was going to be famous. And with her final breath, Barbara Finch gave the performance of her life. I wasn't there myself, but I hear Barbara was magnificent. Poor girl. She had a taste for stardom. But unfortunately, so did her fans. Of course, the police blamed it all on poor Rick, who disappeared the same night. And little Walter? Hiding under his bed the whole time. He took it all pretty hard, but that's another story. As for Barbara, tucked inside the music box is all they ever found of her. Her ear.
Какой?
Now that's what I call a real eerie tale.
Немножечко крепоты, так сказать.
Edie told
Наведем.
me all Barbara wanted was to be remembered, as absurd as that comic was. Maybe what Edie saw was a happy ending.
Что за скрипы? Кто скрипит?
I guess now I know why Mom didn't like me playing with the music box.
Свет бы включить, конечно, здесь. Да, вот перила сломаны были. Понятно, так все еще не ясно, почему они так быстро уехали. Бильярдный стол здесь. Свет. Это ветер.
Mom said the basement was off limits, unless I wanted another tetanus shot.
Это звучит, как будто кто-то на машине приехал.
I saw Edie sneak down to the basement once, carrying packages.
С какими-то пакетами.
I thought maybe she was hiding presents.
It turned out she was hiding a lot more than that.
Что за бункер? Как здесь
I remember asking Mom once about where Walter had gone. She said after Barbara died, he got as far away as he could.
В бункер?
If there's a pattern in all these stories, I think it's that none of us has gotten very far.
Я жил в бункере. Настоящее окно.
Goodbye, everyone. I can't believe I've been down here for 30 years. On that first day, after the shaking started, I didn't think I'd survive a week. But after a few days, I settled into a routine. That's what kept me sane. Having a schedule, living for today. I always expected to be dead tomorrow. But if you wait long enough, you get used to anything.
Что за тряска? Это что-то сверху происходящее, ну типа стройка.
Even a monster on the other side of the door starts to feel normal. Almost friendly.
Что за монстр по ту сторону двери?
And then one day, everything just stopped.
2005.
Whatever that thing was, it was gone. Maybe it got tired of waiting. Or maybe I just got tired of being afraid.
У него такая детская травма из-за происходившего с сестрой, типа что он...
It's been a week now, the longest in 30 years.
В 2005 году.
I'm done waiting. I have to leave. Well, I still can.
Надо посмотреть, она в 2005 году умерла, вот эта Эдди, или нет. О, еще тут есть спуск. Так. Тоже книги.
I know it's out there
Бас.
somewhere.
Идея за бункером
Whatever killed
началась.
Barbara
То, что убило Барбару.
and Molly and Calvin.
Кельвин. Кельвина
Maybe
убила.
this is all a mistake.
Кельвина убила гравитация, типа.
But I need to stop living the same day, even if it kills me. Whatever's out there, I want you to know I'm ready for it. I'm going to appreciate all of it, especially the food. I don't mind if I only have a year left, or a month, or a single week. I'd be happy with one new day. I can already imagine the sun on my face.
Блин, нет. О.
Walter died when I was 6. I can't believe my mom never told me he was down here.
Что, вниз?
I'm sure my mom was trying to protect me.
Все вниз и вниз. Всё вниз и вниз. мышки.
Maybe she was afraid I'd end up like Walter. But if she never told me about an uncle under the house, I can only imagine what else she was hiding. I don't want to make the same mistakes she made.
Мусор какой-то, у нее здесь помойка была, я так понимаю.
Trying to bury something that's still alive.
Так. Это тоннель.
Now that there's only one of us left, or maybe two, I thought it was time I heard the stories for myself and found out what happened to everyone else. But now I'm worried the stories themselves might be the problem. Maybe we believed so much in a family curse, we made it real.
Так, вон тут остров, там памятник должен быть справа, или прямо надо мной памятник должен быть. Стулья, почему стулья на деревьях? Это вон
I don't know
дом.
if I should even be writing this.
А, вон он памятник.
Maybe it'd be better if all this just died with me. But I thought you should know about your family.
Это не Эдит, получается, да? Эдит записывала это все в свою книжку.
And the history you're a part of.
А тот, за кого я играю, то есть сейчас вот это все типа ходит здесь, это какой-то ее потомок, ее внучка, дочка, кто-то. Можно в воду зайти? Нельзя?
Though to be honest, I feel as lost as you probably do right now. I think the people in these stories believed them, for what that's worth.
Темно, ничего вообще не видно.
And when you look at the house, that history of imagination and stubbornness and madness, any of it seems possible.
А, там тот человек, который уезжал, с сломанной
I
рукой был.
think we've been surrounded by death for so long, we've just gotten used to it.
Почему нет дырочки с этой? Есть, вот она. Блин, было бы круто, если можно было туда. Там олень. Нет, это листочек, блин. Ладно. Домик на дереве, видимо, вот через него я вернусь назад. Гнездо осиное. А, это не гнездо, это.
What kind of family finishes building a cemetery before starting the house?
надо обойти целиком, да, через кладбище.
It's embarrassing for me to admit this, but the pet cemetery made me more uncomfortable than the human one. 3 of the gerbils were mine, and 2 had been my fault.
Люси, Дейзи, Дёрпи, младший, Бёрпи, Чорпи, Орпи, Лёрпи, Сёрпи, Зюрпи, Зоя, Коко, Такер, Чарли, Котик, Дейзи, пёсик Люси, зайчик Оливер, пёсик Боб, котик Шадоу, рыбка Кристофер, Шадзи, кто бы это ни был, Бейли, лягушонок.
Sven built the house, but it was Edie who designed the cemetery.
Сидите, так. Молли, Финч, летучий котик. Кельвин, ракета. Свен, Эдди, Финч. Можно встать как-то так, чтобы это слово сложилось.
I'm sure Odin's monument had been Edie's idea.
Барбара и Уолтер. Так, этих всех с этим совсем я уже разобрался, кажется, да?
My mom was always trying to move on, but for Edie, the past never went away.
Прям памятник в виде дома. Это ее мама, наверное, или нет?
She could see it poking out of the water at low tide. Edie's side was always easier for me to understand.
Так, вот сюда надо посмотреть. Абсолютный Good Games, реально.
Edie said she dreamed about the old
Остатки
house
старого
every
дома.
night.
Реально, actually Good Games, то вам не этот... Dark Flash.
But the older I
Не
get,
Dark Tide
the more I
всякий.
can see where my mom was coming from. Her dad had been pretty strict, but it wasn't enough to save her brothers. She was just trying to do better.
Грегори, Сэм, Газ. Сэм — это второй брат-близнец, который стал военным, я так понимаю, да? Который в 33 умер. Это его дети? Газ, Финч, Грегори, Финч, Сэм. Да, Кельвин его брат-близнец. Сэм погиб. Сэм военный. Газ, Грегори, Дона. Вот это вот Доун.
She lost 2 of her brothers, just like I did. I get why she tried so hard to protect us.
А, так это Доун, это ее мать, собственно. Получается так. Получается так. Ее брат Милтон пропал, и у нее старший брат Льюис, который фоткал. Собственно, в 16 году ее мать умерла, и она отправилась в дом обратно. Но играем мы не за нее, потому что, во-первых, руки вначале были другие, во-вторых, рассказ третьего лица какой-то идет не местами, как обращение к кому-то. Так. Так, значит, что там было, да? Вот, значит, рассказ как обращение, она уже нарисована. Девочка, которая сейчас ходит, она дорисовывает каждого, о ком она знает. Так это работает или нет?
We never found Milton's body, so my mom insisted we were putting up a monument, not a tombstone.
Рисовать любил, да. Санджей Кумар. Это их отец. Это их отец. В 2002 умер. В 2012. В 2002. Льюис, который взрослый был.
There's so many things I wish I could ask my mom now. Part of me thinks this is what she wanted all along. For me to come back someday and find everything out for myself.
Это что там такое? Листочек?
But looking back on it now,
Это вот это, где кошка была, да? Домик на дереве, вот этот вот.
if she told me there was going to be so much climbing, I never would have come when I was 22 weeks pregnant.
Ого! Мы, видимо, за дочку реально играем. Да, тут же можно? Или... Нет, вроде... Блин, нет, есть как, блин, сложно, ладно. Так, вот это лестница, да?
I never met Grandpa Sam, but I think he and my mom had a lot in common.
Место для костерка. Прикольно, так чисто сидишь на балконе. Это вообще кайф, по-моему. Я бы с кайфом так посидел, честно говоря.
They were both pretty intense.
Бип-бип. Здорово.
Sam spent his life shooting photos, but Mom said he got nervous being in front of the camera. I guess we're all
Охотник.
afraid of something.
Так, прежде чем покидать комнату, что-то еще тут надо поискать.
Instead of hiding from death, Sam seemed to go out of his way to meet it.
Военный, охотник. Киса. Airline ticket. Ки. Это его жена, видимо. Что написано? Кей Финч. Кей Финч, Фэрмит, Оркас Айленд. Airline ticket. Она его бросила и улетела. Да, вещи собраны, раскиданы, пустые ящики открыты. Настра на кровати заправлена, да, видимо, она его бросила и уехала. Так. Уэс Маринс. Колечко. Или он погиб, и она просто...
Dawn, I promise, you'll never forget this weekend.
Yes, sir.
These memories are gonna last a lifetime.
Hmm? Am I gonna have to shoot anything?
It's a hunting trip, Dawn. Shooting is strongly encouraged.
Shouldn't we be leaving?
Just want to get a shot of you, Dawn, then we can take off. Not quite.
What?
Perfect.
It's gonna rain the whole weekend, isn't it? Please just take the damn picture.
Hey, language.
Один Финч трейл, надо жесть.
Did you want to get a picture of me or what?
А где она? Куда ее фоткать-то? А, вот боже.
I will never forget this weekend, Dad.
That's the spirit. Okay, got it.
I'm gonna take some pictures, okay?
Just be careful. That camera's older than you are.
Что я фоткаю?
Definitely should not have drunk all that coffee. Hey!
That's a keeper.
I'm just saying, I'm not always gonna be here, Don. You'll need to remember this stuff, if you want to survive.
I'll be fine, Dad.
You know who else thought he was gonna be fine?
Some guy who died.
Don, I'm being serious.
I know, Dad. You're always serious.
Да я
Doesn't
дедушка,
being out here make you
получается.
want to chill out?
Well, to tell you the truth, I haven't been out here in 20 years. Last time I was with my brother Calvin. Man, that was a great trip. Your grandpa Sven taught us how to fish, how to build a fire. We found an old log. Don, don't you think you could find something more interesting to photograph? I bet if I could remember where that trail was, we'd spot a buck for you in no time.
Видимо, надо найти сфоткать оленя.
Give me a minute to check the map.
О, вот это. Нет?
Let's see. Maybe. What was it?
Dad!
Good eyes, Don.
Во-первых, птичку хочу. Во-вторых, оленя хочу. Давай, поднимай голову.
Before you take the shot, let me get a picture of you.
Где она? Где она? Хорошая фотка.
I'm over here, Dad.
I'm over here. Где? Ага.
Dad, I.
Just. Let me get behind you.
Do I have to do this?
Don, you don't have to do anything. But if you want to survive, you'll need to be strong.
Круто.
Great
Крутая
shot,
штука.
Don! I'm proud of you, Don. Always remember that, okay?
Dad, it's twitching. I think
That's
it's
totally
some-
normal, Don. Just focus on the camera. Try not to think about
Dad!
Это вот так он умер. Жесть.
Of all these stories, that's the one I wish most that my mom had told me.
Да, конечно. К оленям. детей, видимо, да, 3 детей. 3 детей же. 3 детей, да. Для него рога и сделал. Да, видимо, она его бросила, я так понимаю. Блин, офигеть, у нее это окно панорамное. У него очень крутая комната.
After Sam died, my mom and Edie got really close. They'd both lost a lot.
Это бабушка, супер старая бабушка. Теперь надо сбить, да? Блин.
And he'd want you to be happy too. Good luck, Kay. Love, Sam.
Блин, там не написано, кто. Блин, и кит маленький здесь. Да. Это грустно, это очень грустно, честно говоря. Каска. Газ тоже. Дона это ее мать, собственно.
I can't imagine my mom ever writing poetry. and yet-
Панк-брат. Это потом, видимо, наверх проход какой-то. Давай посмотрим на тебя.
A poem for Gus, who always said the wedding was a bad idea. Our father never hit us kids, at least not very hard, before the day my brother said with teenage disregard that he'd be dead before he'd see a wedding in our yard.
На него упадет вот эта штука, да.
My father made him come, of course, but Gus stood far apart, just flew his kite and bottled up the storm inside his heart. I tried to talk him out of it, but though he'd never met her, we don't need a stepmom, were the words that I
now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
В атаку. В атаку на невесту. Шторм сдует столб, да.
When the time for photos came, Dad ordered him to come here. But Gus declined and as a sign held up his middle finger. The wind picked up and panicked geese appeared and quickly went. But all the humans did that day was go inside the tent. The rain came down in buckets then, but no one seemed afraid that nature might destroy the tent our dad had crudely made. The thunder sounded much too close and full of angry power. But all my father said to this was, "Make the music louder."
Тотем.
I wish that I could truly say I thought about you on that day. Out there on the beach alone, just you, the wind, the sea, and foam. But I didn't. Until we found you.
She never talked about
13
him,
лет
but
ему, да.
Mom told me once if I was a boy, they were going to name me Gus.
Purchase evacuation plan. Так, я вот смотрю на него. У меня сбоку две вентиляции вот эти вот были, да? Здесь выход в коридор получается, да? Blank outside, no answering door for strangers, no instance after dark, cultures before dark, respect others, yes, don't Gregory. У них обоих вниз, переключателя у нее вверх, потому что она одна перешла до взрослого возраста, видимо. Так это работает. Блин, я хочу туда. А, я оттуда спущусь. Вот сюда я поднимусь. Так, Rise Flag 7:30. Завтрак 8. Тихий час 11. Так, протереть, выбросить мусор, помыть пол. Моуярд это, наверное, прибраться в саду. Возможно, Грег и Бэйби. К сожалению, Грег так и остался. Бэйби. Рутина. 100 прыжков на скакалке, 150 джампит джеков, 100 отжиманий, 100 скручиваний. Спрятать до почтового ящика и назад. Блин, клевая комната.
My mom moved up to the loft after her brothers died. At the time, it was as far away as she could get.
Библия. Найс Джей. Лайту Индия. 10 способов научить критическому мышлению. Блин, не помешало бы многим такая книга, честно говоря. Так, давай посмотрим.
Religion was another thing my mom never talked about, but I think it helped her a lot after her dad died.
Это правда с родителями.
She spent a summer building houses in Calcutta, where she met my dad, Sanjay.
Калькутта. Где? Религия, наука, математика, история, конечно. Математика и география. То. Можно на шесте спуститься?
My mom moved to India a week after graduation and got a job teaching English. Louis was born a year later.
Сюда листовки. Она их просто из окна разбрасывала, видимо. Красиво. Ничего не скажешь.
When my dad died, I don't think Mom knew where else to go. I'm sure Edie was happy to have her back.
Льюис, Милтон, Эдит. У нее цветочки, очень много рассады, да. Ручка. У Льюиса подписано. Базилик. Да, шалфей, тимьян, мята.
And to see kids in the house again.
Какие-то горшки с тониками. Прикольная терраса.
The house had to get a little bigger, but Edie was used to that.
Блин, очень клевая терраса. Реально очень клевая терраса. Там башня наверх еще, блин. Это
And for a
вместо
while,
школы у них здесь было.
things were good. Almost normal.
Так. Активный анализ. Никогда не переставай учиться. Ничего не предполагай. Уважай критику. Задавай сложные вопросы, да. Таблицу умножения. Не учились здесь, я так понимаю. Просто тут. Много книжек.
But it didn't last.
Стикеры. Один Финч, миф, проклятие. By Edith Finch. Она сделала проект. Семейство, блин, это плохо нарисовано. Plantain, no focus. Естественно. Так, растения, животные, грибы, бактерии. Четвертое какое? Пятое, точнее. Простейшие. Простейшие. Вирусы? Бактерии, вирусы. Бактерии простее. Вирусы. Ладно. Крест. Блин, научный метод. Наблюдение. Вопрос, исследование, гипотеза, эксперимент, данные, заключение. Да, в аспирантуре такое рассказывали. Жесть. Можно было просто в это поиграть. Teach and learn. 7 способов сделать успешную классную комнату. Дона Финч. Она книгу по этому поводу написала. Жесть. Она реально же просто учитель. Блин, 2 парты, потому что один из них умер, да. Барбара, Гас, Свет, Грегори, Один, Кельвин, Молли, Сэм, Льюис, Рутс. А, потому что один из них был взрослый. Да? А, нет, Льюис был взрослый, Милтон. А Милтон не успел поучиться, видимо, просто.
The beginning of the end was Milton's 10th
Обсерватория.
birthday, when Edie gave him a castle.
Энди подарила ему замок, да? А туда я еще вернусь, видимо.
After Milton disappeared, the only thing he left behind was a room full of paintings.
Рейтингс. Так, давай посмотрим. Какая-то грязь, следы какие-то. дверь. Это он вот эту дверь нарисовал, да, почти только отзеркаленную. Краски грязные. Следы желтые. Это что такое? Это непонятное что-то. Клёвая
I
спальня.
think Edie was happy to finally have another painter in the family.
Ящерица. Какие-то пейзажи. Ручки. Он здесь рисовал, да.
Milton Finch in The Magic Paintbrush.
Это вот эта вот штучка, которую надо перелистывать быстро странички, да? Это очень круто. Нарисовал дверь и ушел в нее, да, такая сказка. Да. И она тоже рисует.
I was 4 when Milton disappeared.
Остались двое, да, трое.
Mom spent months searching for my brother. Then she sealed the doors.
Видимо, сошла с ума и не выдержала, я не знаю ничего. Как что это можно объяснить?
Whatever Milton had found in the house, Mom didn't want it getting out. Mom definitely blamed Edie, but I think Lewis blamed himself.
Льюис — это старший брат ее, да.
After he graduated, he just spent more and more time in his room. Until Mom got him a job at the cannery. Everyone always told me to stay out of Lewis's room. Except Lewis.
Да, у него тут тот самый. А, эта лестница никуда не ведет, да. Тоже клево, красиво, капец. Жесткая кальянная чайка.
Lewis's room smelled very, very familiar. That part of him lived on.
Very, very familiar, так сказать. Very, very familiar. Вот это прикольный рисунок, конечно. Фрактальный такой чисто. Блин, вот эта подушка с чешуей с какой-то вообще кайф. Видеоигры Калия. Так, что это? Теодор С. Quality. Cigars, понял. Так, что это тут у нас? Локер контентс. Компьютер с 2 мониторами здесь. Наркосы, да. Блин, фитомяч, у меня такой же есть. Вообще офигенно, вот так вот такое, блин, очень крутое место. Вот просто, ну, еще бы шторки, чтобы можно было опускать, если вдруг. А так просто такой полукруг со всех сторон. Так вот сидишь, смотришь в лес. Блин, красиво. Чё? Оркас Айленд, региональная школа. Старшая школа.
Lewis and I spent a lot of time playing games together, but he was surprisingly bad at them. He died a lot.
Да, это вот звучит не очень хайпово. Шапка.
He was so proud of being Indian. I think for him, it was a way to be something other than just a Finch.
Где его алтарь? У него в комнате? А, вот это я не посмотрел, контенцию.
Dear Mrs. Finch, as Lewis's psychiatrist, I can understand your desire for an explanation. As I see it, the trouble began in January, shortly after we convinced your son to seek treatment for substance abuse. Newly sober, I believe Lewis first noticed the monotony of his daily life. He kept working at the cannery, but he withdrew part of himself. In our sessions, I saw the same behavior. His mind began to...
Руку. Рука, да.
Wander.
Блин, это очень круто. Это очень круто, вот это когда две в двух местах. Блин, это не просто. Как это сложно.
He said he started small. Imagining a labyrinth. He'd feel his way about. Then something moved. Bats.
Летучая мышь. Что за дракон?
And things that have not names.
Что за жесть?
He knew it was all in his head. But he took it very seriously. I had hoped he'd find himself.
Блин, пожалуйста, только не руку.
But he found something more. I worried about him then.
Игра в игре просто жесть, очень круто.
Daydreaming at the cannery. I spoke with his boss. But he said Lewis had become a model employee. Methodical, tireless, focused.
Да потому что он на автомате делал то, что он делал на автомате, с ним что-то
Like a whole
случится.
new Lewis.
С ним что-то произойдет.
So I let him go on.
Из-за того, что он на автомате работал на опасной, ну, как опасной, относительно
I
опасной
even
работе.
encouraged him. It seemed very promising at first.
Собака. Петучи.
He told me he'd made a
Собака.
new friend.
Реально собака. Так, надо зажечь огонь здесь. Нельзя зажечь огонь.
On the edge of a city he named Louis Topia. He built the city up slowly, brick by brick.
Шизанулся, да.
Then he made musicians. And songs for them to play. He talked about starting a band. And he was always humming something. Every day his imagination grew stronger. He no longer spoke at the cannery. But his chopping was as reliable as ever. Then one day it struck him that all the cheering crowds, even the stones under his feet, were all in his imagination, so he could do whatever he wished. He held an election for mayor, and he won. They begged him to stay, but his mind was already wandering. It became a game for him. He'd conquer a city, then immediately push on. New Louisville. St. Louis. He started drifting away from our reality.
Шизофрения совсем, он не выпилился, просто шизанулся.
Minneapolis. Until one day he forgot to go home from the cannery.
Жесть.
Even as his mother pleaded with him, part of Louis kept sailing on. In Louisburg, he heard rumors of a handsome queen.
Вот такой здесь выбор есть в этой игре.
The queen was on her own quest for
Какие губительные змеи,
radiant
пожалуйста.
rainbows.
Была 100% ачивка проехать через все, я
He
уже
followed the
запорол.
sound of her
Серебряная арфа.
silver harp. His chase led him to a golden palace east of the sun and west of the moon. Even then, his logic remained sound.
Все, ножа уже не видно, жесть.
He knew the world was all in his imagination.
Это очень плохо. В какой-то момент либо это будет не рыба,
But he was so proud of having created it.
либо... Так, открывай меня. Спасибо.
In his own eyes, he'd become something greater than a king. someone who'd never known success in the real world, I think it was overwhelming. And then it struck him that the real Lewis was not the one chopping salmon, but the one climbing the steps of a golden palace. My imagination is as real as my body, he told me. It was hard to argue with him.
Ну, блин, этот шкафчик с травой, конечно, блин.
He began to forget the world we know.
Подкуриться, поиграть в видеоигры, Imperial Palace, Orcas Island. Единственный этот китайский ресторан, да. Бедолага. На завод к рыбам пушается.
I think it pained him to remember Lewis, the cannery worker.
Да, сам себя найдет, что со спины, да.
He began to despise the man with a royal contempt.
Bruce Finch. Капец, тут много рыбы, она просто так валяется, вся жесть. И уехал, да, в мясорубку. И уехал в мясорубку.
I still thought I could save him. Even after he said he was being crowned king over all the lands of wonder.
Коронации в банку.
The palace would be packed with his companions. Including the wise Calico who'd insisted on advising him.
Калиф, который давал ему советы. Котик Молли. Любил котика, видимо, раз котика фантазию к себе забрал.
His queen waited, holding his crown.
Да гильотина. Он голову положил под этот нож, да?
There was only one thing left to do. Bend down his head.
Какой кошмар. Щелк.
And the rest I think you know. Mrs. Finch, your son was a kind man who will be missed by all of us who knew him.
Эмили Нут. Доктор Эмили Нут.
My brother was really cool. I wish you could have met him.
осталась Эдди, получается, только, да? Или я ее уже пропустил? Мог ли я ее пропустить? Эдди и Донна сама по себе осталась еще.
On the way back from Lewis's funeral, my mom told me to start packing. She waited until the day before we left to tell Edie. I'm not sure if she wanted to make it easier or harder. I wish we'd stayed. But I understand why we left. My mom ended up leaving everything behind.
Что как можно быстрее уехать решил от всего этого. Донна Финч, бабушка. Ее книги, молитвы. Сестра Лив, Санджи Кумар, отец.
What happened that night had been coming for a long time. Maybe it should have come sooner.
Бабушка, все? Да.
But it had to end one way or another.
Как она здесь?
All that's left now is to tell you about that last night.
Это ее комната, Эдит, на самом верху, да. Я, получается, пропустил Донну. И Эдди. Или еще не пропустил. Кто знает. Перо для писания. Ручка, вид пера.
That whole last day, Edie just watched us pack and didn't say a word. Until supper, when she raised her glass and said,
"To our final night together, and all our final nights apart."
Grandma, you know what I said about alcohol. Some of your medications are very
Edith,
specific.
I left a present for you in the hallway. Why don't you go open it? The grown-ups have to argue now.
I'm sorry, you're right. We're all leaving tomorrow. Let's just enjoy our last...
I'm not leaving.
Edith, you're excused.
В коридоре ждет подарок.
The power had been shut off that morning, but Edie always had plenty of candles. When my mom sealed the library, I don't think she knew about the other entrance. Or that Edie had a key to it.
Вот, мне надо будет сюда вернуться, видимо, в начало, да. Там было что-то написано, я не посмотрел. Можно назад? Нет, ладно.
That thing you're afraid of isn't going to end when you leave the house. Edith has a right to know these stories.
My children are dead because of your stories.
Здесь кровать, она здесь спала, да. Это ее.
I think it's best if Edith and I leave tonight.
Она в спальне, в библиотеке жила.
We'll have the nursing home send a van for you in the morning. Okay?
А утром уже не за кем было присылать машину, скорее всего, да?
Dear Edith, there's so many stories I wish I could tell you, but there's only time for one. This is about what happened on the night you were born. That night, the tide went way, way
И
out.
она пошла к дому.
It was the first and last time I ever saw the old house aground. There'd been an earthquake out in the middle of the ocean. They called it the lowest tide in 1,000 years. God, it smelled awful. You know, I've seen that house every day of my life. But I never thought I'd go back to it. When the fog rolled in, I lost my way.
Лампочку должно быть видно, нет?
I got turned around. For a while, I wandered.
Лампочка или звук? Где колокольчик?
I started seeing things.
Олень. Так. Олень в начале был. Видели оленя в начале?
Things I'd forgotten had ever existed. But when I saw them, they felt like old friends. That night, a lot of things came back to me.
Мебель, а вот и дом.
Or maybe I came back to them.
Так, это как у них на заднем дворе.
Things I can't explain, but that I need you to try and...
Edith, what are you doing in here?
It's mine.
Edith!
Mom, you're gonna rip it! Let go!
I kicked and screamed, but Mom dragged me to the car. I never saw Great-Grandma Edie again. The next morning, the van came to pick her up, but she was already gone. After that, we moved around a lot. We both tried to make the best of it. A few years went by.
Можно подуть?
My mom didn't like to talk about it. But she started getting sick a lot. The rest happened pretty quickly.
Да, надо.
She got better for a while, and then she didn't. And then I was alone. The last Finch left alive. Until I found out about you. I'm still not sure what to tell you about all this. If we lived forever, maybe we'd have time to understand things. But as it is, I think the best we can do is try to open our eyes. And appreciate how strange and brief all of this is.
О боже. О боже. Происходит
This journal was supposed to be for
рождение,
you.
видимо.
but now I hope you'll never see it. I just want to meet you and tell you all these stories myself. But I guess if you're reading this now, things didn't work out that way. This is where your story begins. I'm sorry I won't be there to see it. It's a lot to ask, but I don't want you to be sad that I'm gone. I want you to be amazed that any of us ever had a chance to be here at all. Good luck.
Ширли Даллас. Даллас. Детской фотки нет, чувака. Что ж. А это сначала, да, опять? Здесь какая история? Здесь какая история? А, они обе здесь завязаны. Так, блин, ну... Очень круто, что я могу сказать. Интересно посмотреть теперь на ачивки. Блин, это очень сильно. Честно говоря, очень крутая игра. 2 зайцев за 2 пикирования на сове. Пройдите историю Кельвина еще раз. Берите все шары. Шары с бильярдного стола. Так. Историю Кельвина еще раз. Давай пройдем историю Кельвина еще раз.
I knew Grandpa Sam had a twin. And that he never talked about him. I guess my grandpa didn't like history any more than my mom did.
Блин, а ведь сколько, типа, вот 5 лет они ее делали, сколько человек... 5 лет это, конечно, очень много на самом деле. Вот, но... Человек 20 ее сделало, да?
Is that when he made up his mind, that was it. My brother said he'd die before he ate another mushroom. And he did. At Barbara's funeral, we swore he'd never be afraid again. And he wasn't. I think Calvin always wanted to fly.
Sam! Calvin! Dinner's ready! Coming!
But that day, he finally made up his mind to do it.
Что-то изменится?
I told him going around was impossible. Maybe if I hadn't said that.
Calvin! I'm not gonna tell you again!
Maybe if the wind hadn't picked up. Then maybe he'd still be here. But I doubt it. I think he'd already made up his mind. That's what I want to remember about my brother. The day he made up his mind to fly. And he did.
Calvin's story felt strangely familiar. When I was younger, I remember trying to do the exact same thing.
Так, теперь надо про сову. Про сову и про монстра. Это было Молли, да? Блин, а как она в итоге умерла? Что-то я запамятовал.
December 13th, 1947. Dear Diary, I'll be gone soon, but I wanted to tell somebody about what's gonna happen. It started when Mom sent me to bed without dinner. I woke up and I was starving, so I looked around for something to eat. The gerbil food was dry, but I didn't mind it. Mom, can I come out now?
Sweetheart, it's late. Go to sleep.
I thought about eating Christopher, but I held back. I kept eating and eating.
Паста, конечно.
I ate a lot of things that night. Then I heard chirping outside my window. It was a barn swallow going back to her nest. I reached out for her. And suddenly, I was a cat. I tried to be quiet, but the bird was really scared. I jumped and I almost got her. I could tell she was getting really tired. Now I was up in the big tree. I promised Dad I wouldn't climb it anymore. All I cared about was eating that mama bird. I gobbled her up. And suddenly, I was an owl.
Так,
First, all I heard was the wind.
с двух этих самых спусков поймать двух зайцев. Потом дать моряку допеть песню.
Rabbits. I imagined his face looking up and seeing mine through my talons. I swallowed him up, and I didn't chew one bit. Then I flew off to find something bigger. A mama rabbit. She was almost too big to carry. I started choking, but I couldn't stop eating. And suddenly, I was a shark. I rolled off a cliff and into the ocean. Now, I was hungrier than ever. I wanted fat, juicy seals. I tore off her flipper, and it tasted really good.
Нифига, он под землю уплыл. Что?
Grabbed on tight. But I was so hungry, I jumped out of the water. When I opened my eyes, everything had changed.
Так, дать допеть моряку песню, да? Так там это называется. Дать пьяному матросу допеть его песню.
Now I was a monster, and I smelled people everywhere.
То, что она, конечно, ее воображение, то, что она кракен, это вообще капец.
I was big, but I moved real quiet. I wanted to stop, but also I didn't.
Belly with a rusty razor, his belly with a rusty razor, his belly with a rusty razor. What shall we do with a drunken sailor? What shall we do with a drunken sailor? What shall we do with a drunken sailor?
Зон все будет прикольно.
Captain's daughter, put him in bed with the captain's daughter, put him in bed with the captain's daughter. What shall we do with a drunken sailor? What shall we do with a
Откроешь глаза, тут вот это вот.
Sailor, what shall we do with a drunken sailor? Put him in the scuppers with a hose pipe, put him in the scuppers with a hose pipe, put him in the scuppers with a hose pipe, what shall we do with a drunken sailor? What shall we do with a drunken sailor? What shall we do with a drunken sailor?
Как же его просто захавало.
Passenger, I was still hungry. And across the water, I smelled something new. Something I had to have, so I swam towards it. I slithered onto the sand, and the good smell went into an old pipe.
Ого, то есть это все-таки червяк. Понял. Сатурн еще вплоть нет тела.
I got closer and closer. All of my stomach started growling. And suddenly, I was me again. I held my breath for a long time, but I couldn't hear anything. I think it's waiting for me to fall asleep. But it's not going to wait much longer. It needs to feed, and we both know I will be delicious.
Так а почему? Что с ней случилось? Как она умерла?
I'm not sure if I believed all of that, but I'm sure Edie would have.
Так, теперь нужен бильярд. Бильярд в подвале, а подвал у нас это Уолтер, да. А, вот почему у нее это все Пасифик. Ocean Depths Chart. Вот она об этом думает, видимо. Поэтому ей это приснилось.
I grew up looking at Molly's room through the peephole.
Назад можно? Назад можно, хорошо. А как? Как? Чистый стол. А, это в истории Барбары, это не здесь. Это не здесь.
Growing up, I always thought of Barbara as a child star. Of all the stories people wrote about Barbara's death, I'm surprised Edie saved this one.
Old Jack here with another ghastly tale inspired by America's most unfortunate family. I'm calling it the surprise ending of Barbara Finch. As a child star, Barbara was famous for her scream. Now at 16, she was all washed up, a has-been. But in a lucky break, she'd been asked to perform her signature scream at a local convention for monster movie fans. It was just the boost her career needed. Unfortunately, her scream hadn't aged well.
Getting better. I think you just need the right motivation.
Her biggest fan and current boyfriend, Rick, was about to demonstrate when...
Now that was a great scream.
It was Barbara's father, Sven. He'd slipped into a table saw and had to be rushed to the emergency room. So Barbara got stuck babysitting her youngest brother, Walter. Her convention comeback was cancelled.
Okay, I'm hearing frustration, but I'm not hearing terror. What if I tried...
A gang of hoodlums in Halloween masks have been terrorizing Orcas Island tonight. Police are urging residents to...
That came from the basement.
You're right! Also, I loved your delivery on that. Why is your basement door locked?
Because my dad likes making puzzles and secret passages. There's a key hidden in the music box. The secret is to keep winding and winding until finally the key pops out.
Thanks, babe. I'll be back in a sec.
20 minutes later, Rick hadn't returned. So Barbara went to look for him, right on cue. She reached for the music box. And as she wound the key, she listened for Rick, but the house was silent.
Блин, мне нравится эта музыка, это А, это из Хэллоуина, наверное, да?
She found Rick's crutch and imagined the worst.
Это из Хэллоуина, наверное. Так, вот он, стол. Так. Что ж, все получается, да? Да, все 9 ачивок. Что ж, это было очень круто на самом деле. Не зря баф тут игра получил. Очень круто. Вот они игры искусства, а не развлечения. Вот эта игра искусства, а не развлечения, а не мор сраный. Ой. Ну что ж, все.